So, Jordan Peterson is going to tell us how we as parents are paying for our children to be indoctrinated
by dangerous
into
persons.
culture of Marxism by
So
dangerous people.
Yeah, let's look at that. Yeah.
You may not realize it, but you are currently funding some dangerous people. They are indoctrinating young minds throughout the West with their resentment-ridden ideology. They have made it their life's mission to undermine Western civilization itself, which they regard as corrupt, oppressive, and patriarchal. If you're a taxpayer or paying for your kid's liberal arts degree, you're underwriting this gang of nihilists. You're supporting ideologues who claim that all truth is subjective, that all sex differences are socially constructed, and that Western imperialism is the sole source of all third world problems. They are the postmodernists, pushing progressive activism at a college near you. They produce the mobs that violently shut down campus speakers, the language police who enshrine into law use of fabricated gender pronouns, and the deans whose livelihoods depend on madly rooting out discrimination, where little or none exists. Their thinking took hold in Western universities in the 60s and 70s, when the true believers of the radical left became the professors of today. And now we rack up education-related debt, not so that our children learn to think critically, write clearly, or speak properly, but so they can model their mentor's destructive agenda. It's now possible to complete an English degree and never encounter Shakespeare, one of those dead white males whose works underlie our society of oppression. To understand and oppose the postmodernists, the ideas by which they orient themselves must be clearly identified. First is their new unholy trinity of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity is defined not by opinion, but by race, ethnicity, or sexual identity. Equity is no longer the laudable goal of equality of opportunity, but the insistence on equality of outcome. And inclusion is the use of identity-based quotas to attain this misconceived state of equity. All the classic rights of the West are to be considered secondary to these new values. Take, for example, freedom of speech, the very pillar of democracy. The postmodernists refuse to believe that people of goodwill can exchange ideas and reach consensus. Their world is instead a Hobbesian nightmare of identity groups warring for power. They don't see ideas that run contrary to their ideology as simply incorrect. They see them as integral to the oppressive system they wish to supplant, and consider it a moral obligation to stifle and constrain their expression. Second is rejection of the free market, of the very idea that free voluntary trading benefits everyone. They won't acknowledge that capitalism has lifted up hundreds of millions of people, so they can, for the first time in history, afford food, shelter, clothing, transportation, even entertainment and travel. Those classified as poor in the U.S. and increasingly everywhere else are able to meet their basic needs. Meanwhile, in once prosperous Venezuela, until recently the poster child of the campus radicals, the middle class lines up for toilet paper. Third and finally are the politics of identity. Postmodernists don't believe in individuals. You're an exemplar of your race, sex, or sexual preference. You're also either a victim or an oppressor. No wrong can be done by anyone in the former group, and no good by the latter. Such ideas of victimization do nothing but justify the use of power and engender intergroup conflict. All these concepts originated with Karl Marx, the 19th century German philosopher. Marx viewed the world as a gigantic class struggle, the bourgeoisie against the proletariat, the grasping rich against the desperate poor. But wherever his ideas were put into practice, in the Soviet Union, China, Vietnam, and Cambodia, to name just a few, whole economies failed and tens of millions were killed. We fought a decades-long Cold War to stop the spread of those murderous notions. But they're back in the new guise of identity politics. The corrupt ideas of the postmodern neo-Marxists should be consigned to the dustbin of history. Instead, we underwrite their continuance in the very institutions where the central ideas of the West should be transmitted across the generations. Unless we stop, postmodernism will do to America and the entire Western world what it's already done to its universities. I'm Jordan Peterson, professor of psychology at the University of Toronto, for Prager University. Thank you for watching this video. To help keep PragerU videos free, please consider making a tax-deductible donation.
So Jordan Peterson is telling us.
He's a philosopher.
He's a philosopher. He's a professor of psychology who was almost kicked out of the University of Toronto because he said he's not going to be forced to use certain pronouns because somebody wanted him to do it.
Yeah.
And of course, Canada is a completely cultural
Was
Marxist.
he fired though?
No, I think
he wasn't fired, but he's
marginalized.
Yeah, marginalized, and there were protests against him.
Yes, that's a protest. The point to be made is that he is pointing out that dangerous people are teaching our children
at a price.
At a price that we are paying for. Because you think you are sending children to universities to learn to be critical thinkers and to analyze the pros and cons of various political theories. But what is happening in Western democracies, Western universities, is that the children who go there, the students who go there, the young people who go there, are being indoctrinated into cultural Marxism. The universities are the seminaries of the religion of cultural Marxism. Nobody else is teaching it.
That's well put. Yeah.
Nobody else
It's a dogma. It's dogma.
It's religion. Yeah. Nobody else is teaching it anywhere. It's in the universities that it is taught. And then the people who come out of the universities implement it in the society.
The lawyers and the social workers and the lecturers
in the society
have been indoctrinated.
So here we have a situation in which universities should be the place where political theories are analyzed and critiqued.
And diversity of thought.
And there's a diversity in order to have the best option for the society. But instead of that, you will find that the universities are the place where cultural Marxist political ideology comes imposed. Feminism, LGBTism, all this considered of racism, the analysis of the society that is done in an anti-intellectual way of just saying oppressor, oppress. And that is how the society.
And if the oppressor is coming to your college, burn it down.
So if you were to go in some university on the campus and say, let us look at family structure and its role in the way blacks have been not improved economically, you will be called racist. In fact, you wouldn't be allowed on the campus.
And also, one of the points I think Jordan Peterson made very well is that people are not interested in equality of opportunity, really. No. They're interested in equality of outcome.
That's right.
So you are obligated to make sure that the person who does little and the person who does much, the person who comes from a stable family where mother and father are helping them, and the one who comes from a dysfunctional family where the mother is there with so many children and the father has gone his own way, that those persons get the same outcome.
The same outcome, because
he's saying that
social justice, that's what I call social justice warriors.
That you must ensure the equality of outcome.
Yeah. Even God doesn't ensure equality of outcome, because the scripture Proverbs say, if you sleep and you don't work, it's follow the hand. But social justice warriors, which comes out of this identity politics, which comes out of cultural Marxism, all of these things which come out of the universities, is what part of our society.
And we mustn't ignore either the role that falsehood plays in pushing this thing.
Absolutely.
It's founded largely on a tissue of lies, like so many other evils that are in the society. It's founded on lies.
And the fact is, the other thing too,
and
what they call the elite media, all the people who come through places like, the CNNs of the world and so on, they all come through this cultural Marxist thing in liberal universities, and they are presenting that narrative in the media as well. So there's a lot more that we will be talking about. But we want to leave you today that the mind, what the universities, certainly in the humanities and many of these sociology departments are doing, they're not opening minds, they're closing minds. And they are making the minds monolith, really, as Wilmot Perkins said, intellectual ghettos that are committed to defending cultural Marxism in its various forms. And we are feeling the effects of that in the society today. What we really want are universities that are open-minded, that are willing to take on debate as to what are the dialogue and debate, as universities ought to.
Yes, freedom of speech, contending ideas in the public square. It's supposed to happen there. And if it doesn't happen there, then persons who are indoctrinated there, one wouldn't really say educated, those who are indoctrinated there at a cost.
I call them trained brains. Their brains are trained.
They then come out in the society and impose those ideas on the society. It's a very sad state of affairs.
And of course, what they are imposing is things that are absolutely contrary to God.
Absolutely contrary to truth.
Absolutely
contrary to God. It's all based on lies.
So
Well, this has been the Issachar Hour. Again, we hope you have learned something, and we are going to end today with a verse from Isaiah 5. I'm going to read several verses from Isaiah 5, which are quite relevant and germane to what we've been talking about today, talking about the closing of the university mind. Woe unto them that call evil good, and good evil, that put darkness for light, and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet, and sweet for bitter. Woe unto them that are wise in their own eyes, and prudent in their own sight. Woe unto them that are mighty to drink wine, and men of strength to mingle strong drink. And then lastly, and very importantly, which justify the wicked for reward. Justify the wicked for reward, and take away the righteousness of the righteous from him.
This has been the Issachar Hour.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Look
it was
forward
our
to being.
Pleasure.
We continue this, the closing of the university mind next time.
Thank you so much.